Yeah, I think short week for you folks, for us, for both the teams, Stanford and as well as ourselves. Don't get a lot of sleep on weeks like this, but it's part of the deal. I think our coaches have done a nice job of trying to formulate a game plan with the lack of sleep. But that's what makes it fun, especially when you're winning. You know, you have a lot more energy. We play a really good Stanford team. They played well in Pac-12 play thus far. They lost a tough one against UCLA, found their way coming back on that one, but they've beaten USC and Oregon. Watching that game, caught a little bit of it at the end there and took it down the field and got it tied up and then ended up winning that thing in overtime. So they're a very sound football team. Good on defense, don't give you a lot of big plays. Offensively, they use multi personnel groups, a lot of tight ends, a lot of it just constantly changing. And keep you on your toes. They're very balanced on offense. Young quarterback has really got a nice arm. He can throw the football. He can really throw the football. He's got a nice delivery and can touch anywhere on the field with his ability to throw the ball. So they're very balanced. They have some big time wide receivers, big guys that have some size and some length. Throw the ball up for a lot of jump balls, and they come down with a lot of them as well. So this will be a big test for us because they're a complete football team in all three phases. They complement each other. They're very tough, and we anticipate to be a physical football game. Questions?
Hi, Herm. Rubino, Devil's Digest. Second half shutout against UCLA, and that's really been a trend all season long. I know you want to start the game on a stronger note, and I know some coaches really sometimes discount the halftime adjustments, but it seems like you and your staff, whatever you're saying in the locker room, really is paying dividends in the third and fourth quarter.
And you got to give a lot of credit to our staff and for the players, really, because the players, football is always about teaching what you see on the field and then how you look at it, deliver to our players on the sideline. And then at halftime, because of college football, you get 20 minutes. It seems like forever, but they've done a nice job of really adjusting, and the players are tuned in to some things we might do a little bit different, or some things we saw the first half that we'd like to just counter on. And that's football. I mean, that's you got to make good halftime adjustments, and we've been able to do that thus far.
Chris Carbon, Son of a Source. Herm, you didn't have Evan Fields in that game. You had Kewan Markham. You evolved kind of with some of the things that you were doing throughout the game in the secondary. Just wanted to get your sense of how everything functioned back there and maybe Evan's status moving forward.
Well, I think Evan will be available this game. He was kind of right on the edge of almost playing, but we just decided not to, and we allowed a lot of our young guys to play. I think AP's done a marvelous job of just creating personnel groups defensively, trying to get players in and matching what the offense is doing. It's hard sometimes when offenses won't allow you to do that, but he's done a nice job of really allowing a lot of young guys to play. We've always said we do that around here, and that's still the case. I looked in there at the fourth quarter. We had a walk-on defensive end. There was a freshman. We had another freshman, and then Stanley showed up and he got his first sack. And I tell you what, you talking about a guy that was excited. I mean, he ran over to me and said, "Coach, I got a sack." I said, "Stanley, you got a sack." He was the joy on his face was just unbelievable, and he was running everybody on the sideline, telling everybody, "I got a sack." I said, "Stanley, we still got to play. The game's not over. We know, but he did a good job of getting in there and helping us win that game.
Hey, Coach, Jordan Spurgeon, Sports 360 AZ. Going back to halftime adjustments, what is Marvin Lewis bringing to the table with his role during the games?
Marvin can't speak. He can't do any football. He's just an observer. So, during the course of the week, I mean, he can visit with the coaches, but when the game starts, nothing. He can't do anything. He's just a guy just looking at things and evaluating information, evaluating how we're doing things, which is important, but he can't speak to the players. No.
Doug Haller, The Athletic. taking you back just a few years, do you recall while recruiting Ricky Pearsall, anything that stood out to him about what you liked?
Yeah, it's funny. You say that. We're in the bubble, and he was running. We were timing these kids, and he was one of them that was running the 40. And I watched him run. I saw him, and he ran. And I looked. I said, "Boy, that some gun's fast." And the guys on the watch said, "Well, we're not quite for sure." And they said, "Well, let him run another one." And I went over to our guys and said, "He don't need to run. I know what fast looks like. He's fast." And that was kind of my first introduction to him. And just to watch him grow as a player, it's been fun to watch. And his confidence as a player, from being a freshman to where he's at now, I mean, he's the most consistent guy we have. And he's a big play guy. He can make things happen with the ball in his hand. And we saw it, we saw it Saturday night against UCLA. I mean, and when he's running with the ball, you better be fast because he can run. And he runs fast with the ball. Some guys are fast track guys but can't play fast. He plays fast. Yeah. So it's been fun to watch him.
Coach Tim Healy, can you talk about the evening that Zach Hill had in terms of how the weekend started for him and the game that he called for you on Sunday?
Yeah, well, we've dealt with a lot around here, and all of a sudden, he I see him before we leave, and he's walking in here like he had gotten a car accident. I said, "What's wrong with you?" He said, "My back went out." I said, "Oh, that's not good." So now he's getting treatment, and and he was getting treatment and all that stuff all during the day. The next day when we got to LA, and he got better. He started walking a little bit better. And then I said, "Well, you can't go do this." I said, "You got to go in the box, right?" He says, "Yeah." So now there's only so many people can fit in that box. And so now we had to move him up there, and we had to change everything we were doing as far as him dealing with the people on the field. And Trey did a nice job. I had to be a little bit more involved, speaking with Jaden, but the coaches of Guano got them together before they went on the field. So we had to change everything we've done before. And now the big question is, after that performance, I don't know yet, but I said, "What are you going to do? Your back's better?" He said, "Yeah, a little bit." I said, "Well, you can stay hurt if you want. Go back up there if you want." And so we're debating what he's going to do, but I think he's probably going to be in the box. I mean, he can see a little bit different. Now, he can't touch the quarterback as much, but I thought Trey did a good job with Jaden. And Jaden was focused. He was really focused in on this game. It meant a lot to him for a lot of different reasons. And it was fun to see him. And I know after every series I'd visit with him, and he could just tell he was dialed in, And I told him, I said, "Now, Zach's not going to be out there when you bring the guys in." I said, you gotta do this now. You gotta be the guy. I'll stand back. I said, but you have to speak to him and keep him going. And he did that. And it was fun to watch.
Could you just talk about his game plan in general? And because it was just
Yeah,
a tremendous.
it was one of giving Jaden a couple options at the line of scrimmage to see certain looks, whether we could run it or maybe take a couple shots downfield because of the coverage. And it's one thing to get into the right call, but it's the next thing to execute it. I thought our offensive line did a really good job. This is a team that can really get you on your heels with the pressure they bring. And Jaden was very accurate throwing the ball down the field. That was fun to watch. It was fun. It was just fun to watch him throw it down there and complete some big balls, and that always helps you when you can make some explosive plays. I think we have averaging about 22 yards a catch. And that's some real estate, and I think one of the drives that was really impressive where it was complimentary football for us was when we were able to stop them on the one. We went on a 99-yard drive to score. And that was fun to watch. Now, just to go down the field methodically, he rolled out on the one and threw it to Hodges on the run, hit him with a strike. And we got out of there, and then we kept going, and eventually we scored. And I think that was the momentum really changed then for us. because it was one of those games. It was tight. And they have an explosive quarterback too. And every time he goes back, you're like, uh-oh, you know, is he going to run? Is he going to throw? What is he going to do? But that was a big drive, I thought, in the fourth quarter.
Michelle Gardner, Arizona Republic. Coach, how do you bring the guys back down and get them to focus? Obviously, it's a big win, and you got to get them to kind of refocus in on this one and not be maybe as overconfident. And I guess the Stanford's got the same situation coming off a big win over Oregon.
Sure, the big over a ranked opponent, and they did a marvelous job of coming back in that game. I mean, they made some plays in the fourth quarter with no time. You know, they're a football team that never panics. They just kind of keep their poise. They kept their poise in that game, especially in the fourth quarter. Kept themselves alive and ended up, you know, winning it. You know, I've always told our players. It's funny when you're in the arena, and there's a different mindset you have to have than the folks that aren't in the arena, that are outside the arena. And I think sometimes I learned this as a player. Probably one of my coaches told me this, a high school coach actually. He said, you know, every game is an important game, and every game is a big game because that's the only one you play. And I learned this in high school. He said, you know, if you always have that mindset that every game's a big game, especially when you win, then when supposedly these other bigger games, you know, the game never get bigger. It's the same amount of time. It's just different place. But they all become like, okay, I've done this. It just becomes the world you live in. And that's kind of the world I try to live in. Is that every game is a big game because it's the only one you can play. It's the only one you have an opportunity to win. And if you win, it's important because you know the next week somebody's going to say, oh, this is a bigger game. You know, and I sat in that chair, you know, with the microphone. I get it. That's what you tell people. It's a big game. Oh, it's a bigger game. It's another big game. They're all big. If you win, they're big because you want to keep winning. And once you understand that and you look at it that way and you don't look at it no other way, then it's just the game. And you just play it that way. And you're comfortable in that environment, you know, and I just think that my history of being in football, that's why I always tell you folks, I treat them all the same. Because it's the only one you can win is the one you play. It's not the ones down the road or the ones you might have let get away. It's that night, that day, preparing that week to play that game. That's the biggest game you have. And if you look at it that way, it sets your mind in a different way of looking at things, processing, right? And I don't want guys to like, oh, we're going to do what we do. That's what I always tell guys. Just do what we do. Don't change. Just do what we do, and we'll be okay. That's how I look at it. You could ask as many as you want.
Okay. I wanted to ask about DJ Taylor. Obviously, he had a tough game.
Yeah.
And what do you tell a young player like that, because you don't want him to lose the aggressiveness or his confidence?
Yeah, there's this fine line when you're a returner. You know, you feel like when you have to touch the ball and you got to make a play. And I think sometimes the best play is know the situation. We talk about that a lot. Know the situation in the game. And when you understand that, sometimes the best play is, right, or just take a knee in the end zone and just take it to the 25. And that's what, you know, that's the process of it all. But I think when you're a guy like him, you want to help the team, you want to make a play, sometimes the best play is the safe play. Just make a safe play. And the good part about it, we survived it. He'll survive it. He'll learn from it. And we're going to move on. And, you know, I gave him a little hug after the game because you could see he was a little bit down, you know. Didn't say anything. I just gave him a hug. Let him know we're good. Don't take it like, okay, just learn from it. We move on. And that's what we're going to do.
Coach Zach Keenan, Devil's Digest in the back.
Yes, sir.
After games, you've told us how physically and emotionally exhausting coaching a football game can be. Late night airplane ride back to Phoenix. What were you doing on the flight?
Basically looking at Stanford. I got here at about 3. I was here until around, I don't know, 4:30. And then I went home. I have to go home because if I don't go home, my wife can't sleep. And told her I was home, and then I left again by about 5:30. Just made sure my daughters were sleeping and my wife was okay and the dog was sleeping. And came back over here. And that's what you do. You know, it's just, that's part of being a coach. You get that. I mean, it's more NFL days, you know, that's what you do. And you know it, you just, all of us do that. It's not just me, all coaches do that. And it's just, I'm just glad I still have energy, you know, that's because that's the important part. And you have energy when you win a game, you have this energy about yourself, you know, and you're excited and you want to make sure that you give your players information when they come in here today, because they'll be in here today. They were in here yesterday. We didn't see them. We saw a couple of them, but they'll be in here today and we'll go out in the yard a little later. I think it's let me see here. It's at 5. We're having the team meeting at 5. We won't talk about our last game a whole lot. Just kind of show them some things on tape real fast. And then we'll move on into Stanford. So that's the most important thing.
Herm, there's been quite an evolution in your offensive line play from with Darius as a freshman, 17-year-old at Michigan State to now. And they were maybe the unsung heroes in some ways of that UCLA game, the way that they protected, math protected, give you the shot opportunities. What can you say about just the growth that you've seen in that group and maybe some of the individuals like LD or Donovan?
Well, yeah, and those guys have been here from the beginning, right? It's really a good group, a solid group of players. 2 transfers and 3 guys we recruited, right, that have been here. And it's kind of fun to watch them work. Coach Cav has done a really nice job with them. I mean, he really has. And they bought in the way he, you know, it's when you get a change from one coach to another coach, it's always this, you know, how is he going to be? How is he going to deal with the guys, right? And that's a funny group, them offensive linemen. They don't say a lot. They just kind of move around, you know, and they're a funny lot, but do a really good job of blocking and protection. And this was a tough game for them because of what UCLA brings. You know, they bring a lot of pressure, and they really had to hone in on that. And they did a nice job for Jaden. And then can't say enough about us being able to run the ball with those guys. We've made some hay running the ball around here. And those guys know it. They take a lot of pride in that. And so it's a good unit. It really is fun to watch them.
You mentioned the late nights.
Yeah.
They just announced the Utah kickoff, and I believe that'll be 6 straight games of
Good night. I
6
thought we play all night games anyway, no? That's just Pac-12. That's what we do. We play night.
I think you said before that you like night kickoffs, but is there a competitive disadvantage of getting home at 3 in, working throughout the night when maybe your opponent has a little bit more time?
I don't know. That's just, nah, I don't want to get into that. It's just, that's an excuse, you know. Well, this just like when players get injured. Well, I got this guy hurt. The next guy's got to play. I mean, that's just how I've always looked at it. I just say, you know, we know we're going to play the majority of our games at night. That's just how it works. It's a long wait. I know that. I mean, you know, UCLA was a night game. I mean, you know, I got to the stadium at 3 o'clock. You know, gaining, yeah. I'm at the stadium at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. You know, I mean, the guys that are coming in, the workers are coming in and say, Coach, what you doing here? I'm just here. I started staying at the hotel. You know, I want to come over here, you know, and it's a long wait, but I just think you're used to it. You know, we're used to playing at night. That's what we do. And it's okay. I mean, I don't mind it. It's the players. Can the players recover? And I think our guys are used to playing at night as well. But this was a short week, but hey, we got to deal with it. We'll be fine.
Coach Jordan Ham,
Yes,
Sports
sir.
360 AZ. Stanford's quarterback Tanner McKee is
Yeah.
a guy that went on a 2-year mission before heading over to Stanford.
Mhm.
Jaron Hall was another one. Case Hatch on your roster. Do you see a common trend among those guys who step away from football for a couple of years but still gain that life experience?
I think you just mentioned just some life experience, and all of a sudden you don't have it anymore in your life. A couple of years, and you see how much you really miss it, and we all miss it. There's nothing like playing at any level. It always ends, and I think for those guys, when they leave and do their worldly missions and you know, and it helps them with their purpose. And then I think they even like it more because they don't do it. It's been taken away from them for the right reason. But then they get an opportunity to come back. And those kind of guys are good to have on your team because they can reflect. When guys think it's hard, they go, hey man, I've seen hard. I've been somewhere where it's hard, right? Where people are living like, I mean, when you look at it, wow. It puts it all in perspective for guys. And so when you can get an older guy like that, that has stepped away from football, they can be a voice for you. They don't have to get up on the stage and talk, but I just think there's times in the locker room where those guys can say something to a player that's kind of feeling down or, hey, look, you know, no. And that helps you. So I like having those guys on your football team. Yes, sir.
And coach, both lines parts, I mean, games, you always talk about one in the trenches, but it seemed like, especially in the second half of this game, UCLA on offense, the defense really not letting them reestablish the line of scrimmage. And then offensively for you guys, you said running the ball, reestablishing the line of scrimmage well. How do you feel through 4 games that both sides of the trenches are?
They're playing well. Defensively, we've had a lot of guys that have been missing. You know, we lose our best defensive lineman early, and you know, Lole, that was a shame. But there's been some guys that had to fill in. Coop probably played his best game. He was really good. He played his best game by far since he's been here. And maybe because I had him on the video the night before, you know, our Friday funnies, I had him on the video, and he actually he was a rap artist in high school, so I found it. You know, I always find that stuff. I told him, I said, I'm glad you're a football player, man, because you would have been broke being a rap artist. And, you know, maybe that inspired, maybe it got him fired up, but the whole team, we were laughing, you know, and it's just fun to see a guy that's been really a hardworking guy to have some success. And that's what you want. You know, anytime you can have some success, or what he had 2 sacks, I think it was. He's in the backfield numerous times. He made a bunch of plays, and I think that gives guys confidence. You know, when you can do something, and then on a big stage like that against a really good football team, that gives you confidence, and that's what we need because we got a bunch of young guys and they're playing due to the fact we don't have anybody. That's all we got, and so they have to play. Yes, sir.
Hey, Coach Jonah Corral with WCSN. You've talked a lot about emotions this season, and I'm just curious, for this week, another test against Stanford, do you let those emotions sort of run wild and potentially use it as sort of a momentum, or do you try to tame it again like you have in the past?
You know, there's emotion and there's passion. I don't like us to be emotional because you generally err because you're not in the right frame of mind when you let your emotions take over. You know, I've always said you want to be a passionate player, you want to be a passionate football team. And I think our players there's this fine line that's between passionate and emotional. When you get emotional, all of a sudden you just kind of lose your train of thought for a second or two, and something bad could happen, right? So I think our guys are learning how to handle that, especially the young ones. Because you got some young guys, you know, and a lot of them have been really good high school players, and they're here now, and they're not playing as much as they'd like to. And they feel like if I can make a play, I can play more. You can't do that. You got to play within the framework of what's asked you to do. You got to play as a team. And when we play as a team, we're pretty good. We're pretty good, you know, and that's what I continue to say and continue to stress. It's team ball. It's we, not me. You know, and everybody, you know, because of the world we live in, everybody wants to click or hit on their deal, right? And they feel like I got to go do something to do that. Just play within the framework of what's asked you to do, and plays will come. You'll make the plays you have to make.
Coach, Prince James Story, Chronic Eye News. This Friday, the 1971 ASU Fiesta Bowl team will be honored. And so I just wanted to kind of ask you how your relationship with Danny White has evolved throughout the years, starting as competitors and now kind of on the same team.
Really good relationship with Danny. I've always said, you know, sometimes, especially in pro football, college football as well, you play a position and you replace a legend. And sometimes that's hard, right? I mean, can you imagine the guy, and I think we saw it Monday, the guy that's going to replace Tom Brady, right? He's going to be a good player. It's Tom Brady, right? And Danny White had to replace Roger Staubach. And I know I played against Roger, right? And then Danny White became the quarterback with the Dallas Cowboys of all the teams, right? And played with Dallas, the big star, the whole deal. And I think Danny handled it in a great way and had some success, a lot of success. But it's always the guy you follow. They look at, is he that guy? And he might not be that guy, but he was a really good quarterback. I know that. I respected him, and it'll be fun to see him with that team, because that was really a good football team. I remember that team. It was a 71 team, was it? Yeah, that 71 team, because I was a junior in high school, and I remember that because I was getting recruited here by Coach Cush, because I graduated in 72. So I remember that team had a lot of really good players in that team too, boy. They're really good. Yes, ma'am.
So after the game, you walked up to Ray Anderson and the comment was made one at a time, back and forth to each other.
Yeah.
Back in the day in 96, that Rose Bowl team, Bruce Snyder's motto was one at a time. Does that have anything to do with the culture of the ASU program throughout the years and maybe bringing that back and that mentality that he had, or is that something completely different and just what you used to?
Yeah, I didn't know Bruce said that. I knew Coach Snyder as well. He recruited me coming out of high school. No, that's just what we've always said. I've always said that, it's one out of, it's just the only game you can win is the one you have to play. And then when that one's done, it's the next week. And so that's just how we kind of do things around here. It's always, you process it, you get rid of it, and you move on. Like I've always said, being a head coach, it's a funny proposition, because when you win, it's a relief. And then I'm already thinking about the other game. And then if you lose, I'm just trying to figure out, okay, let's fix it. What do I do to help the coaches and the players so we can fix it, so we can move on? But it's no up or down with me. It's no like, oh, it's like, okay, we win. And I'm like, all right. And, it's a relief because we put in a lot of work. And the joy I have is watching the players. Anytime I win a game, I always just sit back in the locker room after I talk to them and I watch them. I just want to see the joy that they have. That makes me feel good, that they put in a lot of work that week, and the coaches as well, and they were able to win a game. That's the joy I get, watching our staff and the coaches and then the players after we win a game.